but what it means is if you just sort of sit and observe, of course, you're not going to get the benefits of this new revolution unless you make it. And that's what a lot of my videos and my Noble course is all about: is how do we succeed and thrive in this fourth industrial revolution?
Thank you. Definitely good value in there. Now, so as we go into this fourth industrial revolution, would you mind just telling us kind of what makes it so special and so different from the others? How is it going to impact, humanity and society largely, and what we even consider technology?
But it's definitely the right questions. So there's no doubt the third industrial revolution, information age, is still underway, and that will continue for some time to come. When you talk about things like the Renaissance and the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution, we only can talk about them with confidence in hindsight, right? It's only when they've delivered, they're over, we've moved on, that we can look back and say, oh, that's what happened, right? In a way, it's interesting, though, because now in the 21st century, we have much greater ability to anticipate changes and to have a better view of things. Some of that is because of our ability to manage data, but we also have such great visibility to the world, which we never had before. And so, whilst we will know better in a few decades from now, we can make some very good educated guesses on where things are headed and why they're headed the way they are. There's four things I'd like to introduce, four characteristics that really right now define what makes the fourth industrial revolution differently. I will say right from the outset, technology is a major driving force. So in everything I say now, it's really thinking about it from a technology perspective. But there are some other characteristics which I'll throw in here in just a moment. So the four, I'll just list the four and then I'll describe them real brief. You've got scope, impact, velocity, and convergence. Right? These are the four aspects. And I'm going to use a couple of common examples to help us understand why these are all important. And so for the first one, for scope, I just want to talk about how we upgrade our smartphone. Right? I'm still pretty young, but I'm old enough that when I needed some software early in my career, I'd go to a store, buy a box of discs, go home or go to my office and install those discs on a computer. So, either that would introduce the software or would upgrade it. And that's how we did things. Not so much anymore. You can still go to the store and buy software today. I'm not sure why anyone does that, but you can do that. For the most part, we're downloading software, right? And we're even installing it over air. That's what we typically do with a smartphone. So think about a new major release for Android or iOS, a new operating system. And each of those respectively have billions of devices, right? And so a new operating system comes out and it gets pushed over air out to literally billions of devices around the world. And within a few days, depending on the schedule, we can now deploy software to every part of the planet pretty rapidly to billions of devices. There's no precedent to that. There's nothing in the history of humanity that even comes close, right? Although we take it for granted right now, you spin up your phone and apps are all the time upgrading. It's like, oh, okay, I'm getting a new upgrade. Well, so are other millions of people. And if it's an OS upgrade, so are billions of people. That type of scope has no precedent. And that means things like if we want to deploy new capability, we can get that capability into the hands of billions of people in hours. Again, pretty phenomenal. And we'll see more of the impacts of that as the years go by. When we look at impact, which is the second characteristic of the fourth industrial revolution, and I just continue with this example, again, we can get new capability into the hands of billions of people, no matter where you are in the world, assuming you have a device and an internet connection, and it impacts their lives. Maybe it's a new tool for working, for the gig economy. Maybe it's the Knowable app, so people can listen to courses, or whatever it is, you get the benefit of that. But the impact also means that if we make a mistake, for example, we deploy software that has a bug, you impact billions of people. It's never a great day, I think, at Apple Park when there's an iOS update that goes out and they discover a little bug in it, right? There's got to be a bit of panic that happens as the developers scramble to fix it. So we certainly have the positive and this negative. I'm reminded of a quick story relative to Uber, and I'll just sort of kind of paraphrase it here because we've limited time. A lot of drivers were using Uber software over in India, and some of them were making a living, and many of them were making a living, I should say, quite successfully. But somewhere in the US, some decision was made, and some coders decided to change a configuration. It could have been, either the rate based on their geography or something. And immediately that small tweak to the configuration file of the software impacted a lot of drivers in India. And we know for a fact that at least one driver committed suicide because of the repercussions of that change. So, an impact made in Silicon Valley can have this across the world serious consequence, and we can probably think of lots of examples. The next one is velocity, the speed at which this is happening. You look at, for example, airlines, commercial airlines. How long did it take to get from, to get to 50 million users of commercial air flight? From 0 to 50. Turns out it's about 64 years, right? For 50 million people to be customers of it. By the time we get to WeChat, the WhatsApp of China, it takes a year to reach 50 million users. And then when we get to something like Pokemon Go, right, that famous game that's still popular, it takes 19 days to get to 50 million people. So, the ability for us to develop and deploy value at scale on a global basis has no precedent. Never happened in the third, second, or first industrial revolutions. This is new, and this changes the game, right? Anybody with a good idea and some very basic, access to the internet, some basic skills, can develop a business that can scale quickly and reach lots of people. That's game changing, and we'll live, work, and play. Final aspect is convergence. And convergence has been with us a while. I'm not talking about the telecom convergence where, we combined voice with voicemail and TV and, the kind of convergence media. What I'm talking about here is the convergence of contemporary technologies that enables a new solution. And what I want to do is just quickly go back to this idea of Uber for a second. And it's a fair question to say, why didn't Uber exist 20 years ago? It was a good idea 20 years ago. It's a great idea today. Well, the reason is because we didn't have all the necessary technologies at the right level of maturity combined to make it work. To make the Uber ecosystem work, you have to have social computing, artificial intelligence, big data, GPS, prolific use of smartphones, online payment systems, and on and on. And when those get converged, then you can create completely new capability, a completely new solution to something. And that's what we're seeing a lot of today. We're seeing a set of technically disparate solutions that are at a level of maturity that when we start to combine them, we can deliver something completely new or reinvent the way in which we do something. Now, we've been doing that for a long time, but when you mix that with scope, impact, and velocity, then all bets are off. So this is sort of the broad set of dimensions that we need to think about as we think about a world in this fourth industrial revolution. Now, I don't know if you want to jump in, or your second part of your question, what are the attendant technologies, I think? Is that right?
Yeah, I'll definitely get into some of the technologies and kind of a quick fire round. Okay. For now, let's hop into kind of cities, if that's okay. I know that's where a lot of your work is focused. So tell us, how are cities going to evolve in the fourth industrial revolution?
Thank you for that. Anybody who knows me quite well knows that this is a big part of my passion and the work that I'm doing today. Let's set the context a little bit. So first of all, around about 2008, we moved from being a majority rural planet to being a majority urban planet. We shifted to 51% of humanity living in a city context, in an urban environment. And ever since then, it's sort of accelerated. We're moving into cities at about 2 to 3 million people per week. And we're building urban infrastructure the size of Manhattan, New York City, every month. And by the way, we'll do that for the next 40 years. So it becomes, quickly it becomes evident that our future belongs to cities. And, that means the vast majority of humans that are born in the 21st century will be born in a city, will live in a city, and will die in a city. It seems like that's going to be the human experience of the urban environment. And if we look at our cities around the world, we can say a lot of good things. We can say our cities have brought more people out of extreme poverty than just about anything else. That, in fact, it is the thing that has brought more people out of extreme poverty than anything else that humans have invented. And we're creating products and services in abundance. And even though the population of the earth now is reaching 8 billion people, rather than having any limitations, we've created abundance. But we've paid and are paying this massive price. Air quality is not good in many of our cities. The World Health Organization says about 8 or 9 million people die directly or indirectly because of air quality issues in our cities. We got to fix that. If you have a car and you drive anywhere on a normal working week, you know that transportation is pretty much broken in most of our major cities. Everything from congestion to having no parking spaces to all the carbon that cars are spewing into the environment, including, by the way, the fact that we hurt and kill a lot of people with our cars. About 1.4 million people die in car accidents every year. And what I could do is I can list off all these other things, everything from energy to public safety to education and healthcare, etc. All the things that operate in this city environment are under pressure. For the very first time now, we have over a couple of handfuls of mega cities in the world. These are cities that are that have more than 10 million people in them. You look at a city like Tokyo, which I believe has the accolade of being the most populous city in the world right now, which has about 35 million people. That's a heck of a lot of complexity to run that city and make sure that people have access to running water and toilets and we can feed everybody and people can get healthcare. So the question then becomes, how well are we doing? We're not doing so well in most of our cities in most places in the world. There's a small set of exceptions. So if we're going to have a better human experience, if we're going to have a better quality of life, we're going to have to figure out how to build and re-engineer existing cities and build new ones as well. And no surprise to you, it's going to be technology that is sort of the big player in how we transform our urban areas, our urban cities. And so we see for the first time, first of all, individuals, city leaders, mayors, chief innovation officers, chief information officers, a lot of participants who recognize the challenges and are thinking differently about how do we solve these problems, how do we build better cities. That's an excellent outcome of the first couple of decades of the 21st century. We need a lot more people to come on board, though, because in the world there are thousands, tens of thousands of cities, and we still see just a small set of city leaders around the world who are really moving forward. But the second thing we see is vendors, existing vendors and new vendors emerge that are delivering solutions, that are innovating. And this is one of my missions in life right now, is encouraging more tech companies and more entrepreneurs to create and deliver services for cities, because the demand is huge. Just to throw a number on it, we believe the analysis shows that there will be technology demand in cities by 2025 of around $2.4 trillion. That's the T, trillion, and it's largely not being met right now. We have a lot of work to do. So it means taking things like education, healthcare, transportation, public safety, et cetera, and reinventing them, bringing a whole set of technologies to bear. And this will all play out in the context of this fourth industrial revolution. It's both a positive, of course, because for the first time we have new capabilities, but it also is dauntingly challenging because these issues like how do we provide low-cost abundant energy, or how do we mitigate against the next pandemic, all these things are going to happen in cities. And of course, the big 800-pound gorilla in the room is climate change. The climate emergency is being caused by and will be solved within cities as well.
Jonathan, are you an optimist on climate change? How do you see things playing out?
Yeah, it depends what day you ask me that question. I'm in the short term, I'm a pessimist. In the long term, I'm an optimist. I think that's how I look at things. You look at our short sort of history of the last few centuries, and we faced some big issues. We faced first of all, we thought we'd run out of food, and then we figured out how to make food in abundance. We went through a couple of world wars. That the First World War is the war to end all wars. Somehow we emerged stronger and more peaceful afterwards. Just a couple examples where humanity was facing, what looked like daunting odds, and yet we found a way. We found a way. And by the way, despite what you see on the news and read, we are in a golden age. Of not only technology, but the world is more at peace than ever before. More people have access to drinking water and a job and a computer, and we for the first time have dropped below 10% in the world of extreme poverty, and a country like China will see sort of the end of extreme poverty within just a few years. And so these are amazing results of the first half of the 21st century. The challenge of climate, of course, is probably the biggest thing, the biggest and most existential thing that we have faced. I do see us transitioning to non-carbon energy relatively quickly through the century. I do think we're going to move to electric cars, and then we will see better battery technology, and we'll also see some surprising innovations that will probably force us to rethink how we do move humans and products around the place. So there's a lot of positives there. The Elon Musk challenge that he announced a couple of weeks ago being managed now by X Prize, which is $100 million to the team or a set of teams that figure out how to capture and dispose of carbon exhaust. That's going to drive a lot of innovation, I think, and there has to be some underlying belief that it's possible to do that, so we're not spewing the quantity we are into the atmosphere right now. So I think in the short term here we have real challenges. The Earth is heating up faster than we would like. We see rising sea levels, melting ice caps. The acidification of the oceans. We're seeing real impacts right now. This is not something in the next few decades, but right now. But as I look out a few more decades, assuming we continue doing some very smart things and we have a few breakthroughs, I'm a little bit more optimistic in the longer term. The funny sort of little side thing I just throw in here, since we're on this topic, is ultimately humans need to leave the Earth. And here I'm talking about, maybe in 1,000 years time horizon, because there is no sustainable. We cannot stay on the Earth. The sun is going to grow such that it's going to burn through all the planets and moons of our solar system, including the Earth. So, long term, I think we have to have a much bigger plan, but not necessarily something we need to worry about right now.
Probably not in our lifetime.
No. Good stuff.
Super interesting. Jonathan, I know you wrote a book on the future of cities. Tell us a little
Yeah.
about that.
Well, thanks. I'll just mention real quick. I know Clubhouse, it's not a chance to be promoting too much. It's not really in the spirit of it. But I am excited to sort of share knowledge, and as you can tell, I want us to build better cities. I want us to have a better quality of life, and I want us to solve climate change. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by educating each other and by having access to best practices and things. So I was invited by Wiley to write a book on the future of cities, and I ended up writing Smart Cities for Dummies, as it happened. But it's not for dummies. It is a book I would have written regardless of the platform, which really is about 400 pages of deep researched evidence, and also actual steps you can take for a city to build a strategy, to execute on a strategy, and see benefits in across the domains I've been talking about today. Everything from energy to climate change and transportation and others. I do identify a number of technologies that are interesting to look for. And the other thing that I talk about, which it might be interesting to many people on this on Clubhouse today and YouTube, is how you can sell to cities and how you can prosper. One of the things I'm a big advocate for is it's great to be able to build solutions where cities can be successful, people can have a quality of life, but it's really incredible if you can do that and make money. So you can do good and do well. And the book is targeted also at people who want to be entrepreneurs and innovate and make a difference in the world, but also run a successful organization doing that.
Definitely. I know we only have a couple minutes left here.
Sure.
I just wanted to shout you out. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do a really, really quick fire round. Basically, I've got a couple of different technologies that are definitely going to be up and coming in the next decade or so. And I just want your really quick take. How do you see it? What are the, maybe throw out an advantage or a disadvantage or something that we can do to prepare for one of these? So the first one is going to be AI. How do you feel?
Huge. A lot of AI will be baked into just about how we just do things. It won't be that visible. But just like a lot of the manual processes we see across society, whether in the consumer space or in factories or beyond, AI is going to help streamline that, allow humans to do higher value work, to reduce the errors in processing paperwork or electronic transactions. It'll allow things like the self-driving vehicle infrastructure that we're going to have, cars and trucks and buses, things like drones on both terrestrial and air-based drones will all benefit from this baked-in AI infrastructure. Hopefully, for example, when you need something from a city, and today where it takes, maybe you've got to leave a voicemail for somebody and hope you get a call back, or submit a form. Many cities are experimenting with this, and within a few years, you should be able to talk to a knowledgeable AI bot, chat bot, and get what you need when you want it on your smartphone or your smartwatch. So AI is going to start to have real benefits in how governments and particularly cities deliver services.
Definitely. Good one. Next one is blockchain. How do you see that impacting not only cities, but us individually?
Well, it's not lost, I think, on any of us that on the cryptocurrency side of things, it's become interesting, right? In the last few months, right? And well, first of all, because Bitcoin and Ethereum and Dogecoin and some others are doing quite well in terms of value, but they're the cryptocurrency side of things is maturing. Real people, real businesses, real banks, real organizations are kind of thinking about it in a serious way for the first time. So that's something that will be reflected in of course, in cities in terms of how we might pay for things and how we might bank and do our day-to-day stuff. But blockchain, that underlying technology, we do see it used already in many cities. It's been quite beneficial for things like anytime we store information. We see it with real estate transactions. We see it used, for example, in the country of Georgia. They use it for, all their titles, all their property titles are now in a blockchain database. In the city of Dubai, they had an ambition a few years ago to move every service to blockchain. They've subsequently, rejigged that a little bit, but they moved a lot of services to having a blockchain backend for, transaction integrity and efficiencies. So a lot of experimental work, plenty of activity though. It's a healthy marketplace, the use of blockchain in the government and the city context. And I only see that maturing. And again, something like blockchain will probably ultimately disappear, as in we don't talk about Oracle databases or SAP HANA systems. We talk about the solutions, and blockchain, Hyperledger, etc., become just back-end technologies that help us achieve our objectives.
Just a personal curiosity here: how bullish are you that cryptocurrencies are going to kind of jump into the mainstream like a normal currency would?
Yeah, let me flick a coin and give you an answer. As you know, I teach blockchain, and I have a ton of LinkedIn courses on LinkedIn learning courses on blockchain. But this is a topic that I've been deep in for best part of about 5 or 6 years. I'm probably more optimistic today than I've ever been. That doesn't mean I've sort of resigned to sort of acknowledging that, yeah, there'll be the US dollar, the euro, and Bitcoin as sort of the world's 3 major currencies. Not sure that I'm there yet. There's more evidence today, though, that cryptocurrency has a mature role in the world. There are people who, of course, are much more bullish and much more confident that this is here to stay, to be part of our financial future. And then, of course, you've got a lot of skeptics still. But in terms of myself, if I was maybe leaning towards, being more confident, that needle is gradually moving more positive. So there's a lot of evidence today that crypto is here to stay in a very mature and important way in our society.
Great. I'm going to keep my eye on that. Last one here is something that I definitely don't, maybe a lot of other people in the audience might not know about, quantum computing. Where do you see that going? How's it going to affect us?
Yeah, no, great. Thank you for asking. I'm always surprised, actually. I see these lists where you have like the big technologies for the 2020s, or you see the big technologies for 2021, 2022. And there's the obvious ones, AI is in there, and augmented reality and stuff like that. But I'm not seeing quantum enough, and I think that's a mistake. It is early, but the potential impact of quantum computing can't be understated. It's worthy of its own Clubhouse session for an hour, but I'll try to give you sort of the clip notes here in just 1 minute or less. Basically, we run the world on what's called classical computing today. It's semiconductor material and electricity. When you combine the two, you get the technology world in which we live today, and it served us really well. And every year, we see better microprocessors. We see better software, and we innovation to make all that stuff goes faster and get better each year. But the rate at which we can make leaps in terms of speed and performance, it's slowing down, and we could see a real flattening of that growth within a few years. We need a new stack. We need a new computing paradigm to be able to take on the problems of the second half of the 21st century, or I should say the second quarter and beyond. Because if we're going to solve climate change, if we're going to manage energy better, if we're going to have better healthcare and pharmaceuticals, we need some pretty significant processing power to do that. One thing that a lot of us don't think about is, you have a laptop or an iPad, and you kind of do 99% of your work without thinking about it, and it happens pretty fast. But when you start to solve big problems that have very sophisticated mathematics or optimization algorithms, our task of computing can take a long time. There are definitely things that we do in industry today that, you run a process and it takes maybe 24 hours, or it could take a week to process. There are even, problems in chemistry that, if you ran them on the best classical computer, it could take, a month or 2 months. No kidding, and we'll see more and more of that as we start to get smarter around tech. What we need is a new stack where we can do that stuff faster. And when quantum computing really spins up well and is more accessible, some of those functions and processes that took, that can take a week or a month or even longer, will be done in seconds. And to get there, this new computing stack requires us to have a completely new way of a new what's called a information theory, and it's based on the very small, based on the unique operations of particles and of photons, of light. And all the big tech companies are engaged in this. Many national governments are engaged in this. You can today use Microsoft Azure to tap into some Microsoft quantum computing. Google has a solution, IBM, D-Wave, and several others. You're not going to see a quantum computing on your smartphone or on your laptop. It's unlikely to ever be miniaturized like that, although never say never. It'll typically be a sort of a cloud service that we tap into. And you can play with it today. It's pretty intriguing. It's hard, but definitely something worth looking at.
Interesting. What do you think are going to be the first applications of a technology like that we're going to really interact with?
Well, we already see quantum used in anything that requires optimization. So we're seeing quantum used in supply chain. The airlines, the big delivery companies, they all are tapping into the beginning of the use of quantum. We see it in the pharmaceutical industry, actually in a big way, because we need some breakthroughs in chemistry that enables better medicine and personalized medicine. So we're starting to see it there. We're seeing it used in universities. That's probably not a surprise, right? We're seeing it in the development of a new material science. And those are some of the sort of emerging growth areas. And in fact, there are some very large financial organizations that are using quantum for trying to spin up very quick transactions and also do calculations very quickly. Not a surprise there, probably. But really, what happens whenever you have the emergence of a new technology, there's the obvious places, but what I think we've seen throughout the 50 or so years of the third industrial revolution is that the way in which technology is used is often a big surprise. So I think that the best ways it'll be used are still to be told.
Jonathan, you've been so generous with your time and sharing your perspective on where we're headed over the next decade and beyond. I just want to kind of summarize what we've discussed for anyone who joined late. One is your recommendation to be flexible, and a big part of being flexible is the ability to learn something, unlearn something, and learn again, and to stay relevant as technology is accelerating in its change of jobs across the economy. You emphasized the importance of being a lifelong learner. You talked about the fourth industrial revolution, which is what we're seeing happen now with computers and AI, and as you were just talking about even quantum computing. You also talked about climate and basically near-term pessimism, long-term optimism, which is both comforting and concerning, obviously. And anything I missed that you want to mention? You want to tell people where they can find you beyond Knowable?
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for summarizing there. And sorry, you actually prompted me. The other area where I don't think I said this, where we'll see quantum used in the short term is in climate management, in the sort of processing of climate predictions and weather patterns, because that's really, really complicated mathematics. Of course, I have my course on the fourth industrial revolution on Knowable. So everything I talked about today, I rushed through some pretty awesome things. If you want to go deeper on them, you can hear them at a more comfortable pace on knowable.com, knowable.fyi. I can be reached on Twitter, of course, and LinkedIn. I would encourage you to reach out to me. Connect with me here on Clubhouse as well and on YouTube. Love to hear your questions and continue the conversation. It's been a real delight. Thank you to Devin and Warren. You guys are amazing hosts, and I love what you're doing. And again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thanks everyone for joining. Again, you can find us on Twitter. If you want to check out Jonathan's course, it's knowable.fyi, and it's called ACE in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And he goes into a great historical overview of past revolutions. I think in every revolution, Jonathan, you mentioned that people were always afraid that there was going to be total displacement of jobs, and that was never the case before. So new technologies bring new opportunities.
Great.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate your time. I do see, I wanted to see if anybody in the audience had any questions that we could answer before Jonathan has to go. If so, raise your hand. If not, we will let Jonathan head out of here. Jonathan, I wanted to just really quickly mention in your Knowable course, you actually go into much greater length in some of these technologies. If anybody's interested in listening to that, I am happy to hook you up. Just Twitter DM us. We're at KnowableFYI, KNOWABLE FYI, and I will hook you up because it's